All right. So we're talking about SBoM and dependency scanning and what things are cheap and easy. So I guess to start off, does everyone know what SBoM is?
No, what is SBoM?
So a software bill of materials is like the ingredients list on a package of food that you purchase. Literally, except we're not in a state where all software is required to have that yet. So today, most food in most countries is required to say, I contain flour, eggs, sugar, milk, whatever. And if you ask a restaurant, they have to tell you what's in it. Many software that is in regulated industries is starting to get to the point where they will not purchase from certain vendors if they can't get a SBoM. SBoM, software bill of materials. And I guess you could call it SBoM, S whatever, but yeah, software bill of materials. And so we are starting to get asked more and more often by our users, how can I provide a software bill of materials to my users? And essentially, there's two competing standards out there right now. One of the common ones that I hear slightly more often, but there is no clear winner yet, is the Software Package Data Exchange, or SPDX. And it's an open standard for how one documents that you've got these particular licenses and these particular software bits. And so let me actually link everyone to that in the agenda notes in case you have, oh, never mind, somebody already did, yay,
Yeah,
thank you.
I dropped the links in there.
And so yeah, like it's not the most exciting format, but it's pretty straightforward. And it basically, let me just see if I can find an example file format, or yeah.
Just to level set on what we currently do, we can currently make a list, a dependency list of what's in there, right?
Yes.
So what are beyond that are they asking for that we're not doing?
So that actually is, if I bump over to the SPDX, if we look at this page, let me share the page, I can actually kind of go through it and you can see that we're close. One of the areas that we're really crappy on is we don't actually export it. But this is kind of related.
My understanding is that it traces all the dependencies from within your project's own dependencies. So if there's a vulnerability in something that's 6 degrees away from your project, SBoM would be able to identify that. As opposed to today, you have a list of what you use, but the chain of trust beyond that is kind of nebulous.
So there's multiple things. One, yes, the desire is the components of your components, and iterate that as many times in a for loop as necessary.
And we go 1 degree right now.
We are 1 degree of Kevin Bacon right now. And so right now you have to say like your license list, your creator, when you created it, the package name, which we've got, the SPDX identifier, which we've been discussing adding for purposes of better tracking license management. So we may actually soon have the SPDX identifier, the package version, which we have right now, the package file name, which I think we have, but I'm not 100% that we expose in the correct full way today, but I know we've got it. The package supplier and the package originator, again, I think we have it, but I'm not sure we expose it in the way that the SPDX is expecting. The package download location, I'm not 100% sure if we have this.
Annika, when you're saying that we have, let's say, package by name, supplier, or originator, are you talking about license scanning? Because To me,
I'm
that's not
talking
something.
between license scanning and dependency scanning.
Mhm.
If
Yeah.
in a happy ideal world for one of the languages we have in both, when we do a
Mhm.
license scan and a dependency scan, I'm pretty sure we have those pieces of data in various spots that we could smoosh.
Yeah. Okay. Could be the case for license scanning. I don't remember.
However, I'm
Thank
not
you.
so sure about download location. I don't think we record that anywhere. Files analyzed, we just analyze the files we find. We don't actually, as far as I know, record which file we analyzed to pull our information. And we definitely, and we've got the license, yay. Well, we've got the declared license, but we don't have the concluded license, which I think this is an interesting difference. So we've run into this as a reported bug occasionally, where the declared license may not necessarily exactly match what the presumptive license is. And so it's interesting that the standard calls it out. If there's any copyright text, we do not have that. Package comments, external references, the file names, and then you have to put the concluded license in again. I don't understand most formats because they make you say things like 10 times in 4 different ways. And we definitely don't have things like the file contributors. Like you're supposed to say like who owns the package set, you know, who contributes into the package set, what the byte range is, and a whole bunch of other details here. The
Well, and a
license
lot of
stuff
this
we've
info
got.
could be provided to us by the package. I think there are 2 use cases here where one, GitLab is generating SBoM for you, and then a use case where GitLab is consuming provided SBoMs of your various packages. The license ones, I think, is a really interesting use case that's close to what we do today. We could auto detect if there are potential discrepancies between what your policy is for license compliance and what, you know, your own dependencies are either telling you they're using or what it was detected that they're using. I think that's really close to what we already do today without having to introduce entirely new categories around SBoM.
Yeah, I think we've got some of these covered. I think the major parts we don't have today are we don't have the licenses and dependencies in one list, which Kyle and I have been chatting about brainstorming and testing out doing on users anyway, which is kind of where this conversation came from. And then there isn't a nice little export button, because obviously you need to have this list in a format. I am in no way under the sun doing the SPDX format this year. That's not happening. But CSV would probably get people pretty close. And actually, Sam, I like that idea of if maybe we included an extra couple pieces of information, like this is the file we got it from, or this is the location we got it from, people could pull some of that information, additional information themselves for the missing pieces. If we point them at, we got it from this file location, or we got it from this package manager location, which is, I think, actually a really interesting, like, we get you partially there idea.
I think what's
Wouldn't it
also going to
has
be
to-
key here is we should lean into these existing standards rather than try and build our own thing. I think we're going to get a lot more adoption either using SPDX or SWID rather than introducing a GitLab proprietary spec.
So here's where I agree and disagree. When we introduce standards, I would love to say, check one of your, there's actually like 4 competing standards. These 2 are just the ones that are currently getting popularity. It changes year by year who's the hotness. But I would love eventually for somebody to say, this is my format, and we give them as much of that format as we can with blanks where we don't know. But to start, I'm not sure I want to get into any formats. I just want to maybe say, like, here is your combined, like, I want to start getting closer to SBoM without saying the word. necessarily, and say like, here's your combined dependency and license information list, and literally just give them like a puke out list of what's on the combined license dependency page, and then allow people to start telling me, like, we're in the background maybe going to look and see what could we add, like you were saying, maybe we could just add a piece of information like this is where we fetched this from, and then start allowing users to be like, oh well, could you add X to that export, or could you add Y to that export? And if it's something we're already looking at, if I go to update the way we do a dependency scan or a license scan, and I can easily add that really cheaply, then be like, yeah, sure, let's add it, and we'll keep getting incrementally closer over the
This
next
might be
year.
a good one to have an inquiry with an analyst on and see what their opinion is about which of the standards are the most important. What do they get asked for the most? Because it could make the difference on an RFP if we say that we're, we adhere to one standard or another, and they would know if what people are asking
We
for.
can ask, but just for full transparency, I'm friends with like the 3 people who are actually pressing the government the most on this standard. And I know that there is no consensus even within government. So even if we're, like I said, each year there tends to be about 2. And my hope is VHX, Betamax, etc., that as this is getting more and more attention, like there's honestly probably like 14 standards out there. I think at any given time, 2 are the most popular. SPDX has stayed pretty popular because it does have a pretty solid advisory board. So I'm hoping as we go, more of those standards start dropping off.
Are any of them associated with OWASP?
Good question.
That is a good question. Yeah, we should investigate.
I guess one thing also think about, whatever GitLab chooses to do will likely move the industry to a large extent because of all the open source influence we have. If we're able to offer capabilities that support a given standard, a lot of our hosted projects will move to that standard, and that'll kind of push that to become the industry leader. I guess my main thing is I want it to be a standard of those 14 rather than invent the 15th. We've all seen the XKCD comic.
Yes.
So I don't know which one's going to win.
Plus 100.
Yeah. As long as we pick a standard, I think probably whatever we put our weight behind will become the de facto one, since no one's really using any of these widely as far as I can tell.
And I like the idea of asking the analysts to see which ones are they hearing. And if we hear that these 3, I'm just going to make up an example, these 3 are the most popular or most asked for, what I might do is I might do a spreadsheet where I list all the fields of each one of those 3 and see what the common fields across them are versus the not common fields. Because actually a lot of the difference is really just in the flippin' format. And so I feel like if we figure out, at least we know we need to have these, 9 or 10 different areas of information, and within those areas of information, each one needs these 4 or 5 particular fields. No matter which standard, we can work towards having that data. And then we know that whatever are the top 3 popular ones that we're hearing from analysts, let's see what commonalities there are between these. And we could hone in and be like, okay, the first one we're going to support is this one because it seems to be asked for the most. It makes the most sense. I know that SPDX and SWID both have advisory boards and take community contribution. And so I believe that GitLab would align with either one of them. The other ones I'm honestly not sure about because they are not mentioned as often. And I'd have to dig into that.
Sounds like a good plan, good approach.
So I guess, does anyone have any other concerns or things we should be watching out for? Because like I said, I don't actually want to have a firm plan because I feel like it's going to change, but I just want to like the analyst calls. I want to have some things that we can put some feelers out and not get surprise attacked by any customers or analysts or other GitLab stages.
I feel like this kind of information is really helpful. We probably ought to have this level of conversation with the SAs to help them understand how to respond to some of the RFPs and stuff that they get.
And
Have you seen
actually,
SBoM come up on RFPs?
yes, absolutely. I sort of wonder, let's fast forward 4 months out from now, and Kyle and I have come up with a masterful plan to combine the dependency page and the license page, because that's sort of on the radar. Would it be fair, do you think, to say that we could start telling the sales team, like, there is an export button, it's not in a SBoM format, but it will help customers get close, and, you know, at least internally tell them, like, and also warn them it's 1 degree of Kevin baking, because I don't see us moving away from that anytime soon, because that's going to be a lot more complicated.
Yeah, I mean, anything we can do around that would help. In fact, I've been talking with sales ops, Dara, a little bit to try to figure out a way to simplify the way we respond to RFPs. Right now, everyone is unique and we reinvent the wheel. I'd like to be able to have like a set of answers that people just draw from to the most common questions, and then you just have to worry about the exceptions. And so having something around bill of materials would be really helpful.
I think our messaging on SBoM will need to be really crisp if we're talking to prospects about it. A pothole I could see us potentially getting into is saying, yes, we support SBoM workflows today with our exports. We end up on the compliance person's desk who's expecting to see full SWID and SPDEX tags. And then that's not what we have. And they'll say, well, this is not at all what we want to pay our SBoM budget for. Let's kill the deal. As long as we are very crisp in terms of what we do and do not actually have, I think that's fine.
And we need to be full transparency.
Yeah, that's a general comment. We always should be specific, right? But especially with this in compliance, especially, I can see that becoming more of an acute pain point for sales versus some of the other things that we sell.
There's also been some discussion about moving some of our license finding capabilities into proprietary from open source, which I think would honestly help us with this, because instead of trying to figure out what does license finder or so on and so forth fetch, we can fetch it ourselves. But that one is, we're going to start, I think, looking at doing a proof of concept just to see, like, how terrible is this in, you know, the next couple releases. But depending on how terrible it is, the answer will depend when that gets slated or not.
Nicole, there was a company about a year ago that Philippe was working with that had a proprietary method for doing this, and we were looking at potentially acquiring them, and it fell through, and I don't remember why.
The price they wanted was astronomical.
Right,
their software was great. They did all the formats. So
I wonder though if it's worth circling back. Times have changed a little bit. Maybe they'd be more hungry now. I don't know.
I can ask, but because of who their backers were, I don't think their price will have dropped.
Okay.
And just that, I loved the technology. If they were a somewhat reasonable price, I would have begged and fought because they had already figured out SBoM. But their price was beyond anything our board would even consider. And I think beyond what their real value was.
Are there any other open source things we could draw on? Anything out there we could pull in?
I mean, most of the license finding stuff, dependency stuff, like pulls your list, but I haven't seen any today that says that it'll cough it up. And then most of the open source will build an SBoM for you packages I've seen, kind of like Sam was saying, invent the 15th, 16th, or 18th different standard, and that is the last game I want to be playing.
What about, is partnering an opportunity? I mean, I think Black Duck goes to, several degrees of.
I think some of the partners we've talked to do have this in their portfolio. I am not sure that they have. Sam, everyone who's talked to us so far has been about the security scams. None of them have agreed to partner in with us on creating SBoM, have they?
No, but we've also not really brought it up as a topic. So there might be opportunities there we haven't talked about. I think, to the question about specific companies, we can actually abstract it into two different pieces. The value of providing SBoM and that software supply chain, that's more of a technology thing that we can do with anyone, whether we build it or a partner builds it. I think we really need to flesh out kind of what is that experience, what value we want to provide, and then see what those partners might fit into that at different points. I think Black Duck probably would be a great place to start a conversation, because all the stuff they're doing around open source scanning for licenses seems very close to SBoM. But that said, they are by no means the only people that we could talk to about doing this.
Now, I had a conversation last week. I think, Sam, I had sent you a screenshot asking, like, why were they talking to me, not you, with some of the partner alliances team people. I feel like I should circle back with them, because the ask they had for me is, what should we be looking for to prioritize when requests come in for partnerships? AKA, we get a bunch of partnership requests in. What should come to the top of the pile faster? And I think this, like a couple things I was mentioning is, if anyone specifically fills in gaps of languages that we don't have, like .NET or mobile, please pull them to the top of the pile. But I think we could possibly also say, if they're willing to do SBoM, maybe that could also help pull them to the top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that definitely speaks to the conversation we had on our Friday PM marketing meeting, right? Talking about some of those more premium or premier type of partnerships, as opposed to just, here it is, build it yourself kind of partnerships.
Right.
When it comes to and to help me understand too with SBoM, like when it comes to GitLab, what are some things that we could help like internally? Like one example that I know of that our legal team uses is what we're looking at now for licenses. So let's say that one of our customers asks us for like sort of like what we're using in our versions in terms of licenses. Like SaaS customers have the right to do that. We actually send them this link, and it's not like a full-on bill of materials, but it does show the license and the related components and so on that we released. And it is versioned by each release that we do. So this is kind of in the wheelhouse, right?
This doesn't follow. And so this was kind of what I was thinking with like the export to CSV. I mean, obviously this is much more beautiful than that, but this is kind of what I was thinking, is that is not in any SWID or SPDX format at all. It does contain the major information, but kind of like we were referencing earlier, where like sometimes it wants to know the exact file location that you fetched it from. And the reason why that matters, and people can make faces at me right now, is because of and I'm going to forget the name for it. It's not man in the middling when somebody poisons like the NPM package manager and like takes over a directory and poisons the latest version of an update. Is there an official name for that yet? Does everyone know what I'm talking
It was in
about?
our SIS book, but I forget what the term was.
Okay, but like, so if I was grabbing from a particular package manager, and I grabbed a particular package manager, a particular version of a particular package, I could like have pulled a poison package. And so that's why some of these, like, not only do you have to say I grabbed this in this version, I grabbed it from here. And so that's additional information that I think we could easily provide. Maybe it wouldn't be as pretty as that website, but we could certainly have it in a CSV. And I mean, if it's not that hard to render like a little website, we could, if people ask for a website, which is actually a backlog item, you know, we could eventually look at that as well. But the real thing that people want is usually some kind of XML JSON formatted thingy that their compliance person will use.
I wonder if there's and I'm not familiar enough with the individual standards to know this, but if there's a way that you could essentially grade how much information you have, because we're going to have incomplete results from 99% of packages, I would guess, but there's still value in saying I retrieved it from this URL, even if I don't know what the hash was, right? I wonder if there's a way we could say, you know, this has an SBoM score of 70% based on this missing info, which, you know, puts kind of a ceiling on what you could guarantee in anything consuming it upstream. Could be something to explore. I don't know if any of you know what the standards say there, but
I've never seen something with a % complete thing, but I mean, there's no reason why we couldn't compute that and maybe just give our own score. Like, unfortunately, due to the package manager, you know, we're grading this as a C because we've only got 60% of the data or whatever.
because I think that would also help us to iterate more quickly, because if we try and make every single dependency provide everything, we're not going to make any progress. But I think it would be very useful for end users if we could say, you know, this is the provenance information we do have. These are key pieces that are missing. You can make your own judgments based on your policies and whatever you're willing to tolerate or not.
So here's an example one. And like I was saying earlier, like I'd love to have a CSV export, even if most of our fields are blank. But like this one is like, I'm this version of software, and this is my, you know, ugly name versus my pretty name. Here's my version number. This is where I came from. This is the website I came from. This is the URL exactly. This is my edition. This is my service pack. This is my hash. You know, so it's got all these nitty gritties in there. And I know we don't record, like I was saying, a bunch of the nitty gritties today, but we look at them. So we certainly could start adding them. And we could certainly put all this in a CSV and just have a column and leave it blank. And like you were saying, maybe judge half our columns are blank due to your package manager. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, and I see a lot of value we could also do around SBoM is if you put sbom.txt in your project, GitLab will only import dependencies from specific sets of repos that have an SBoM attached to them. Then if we're ever able to identify a downstream vulnerability, you know, in the dependency of the dependency of the dependency, we could proactively either alert users, push a fix, create an issue, you know, something that gives them more value, not just from SBoM itself, but do SBoM inside of GitLab specifically.
So we're sort of going to get there, not in that way. And this is kind of one of those things where I said we're dancing around this whole topic for the next year. We do want to get to the point where, like today with licenses, I can say I would like to prohibit licenses XYZ from coming into my project. People have asked, could I prohibit dependencies XYZ? Could I prohibit things with vulnerabilities XYZ? And so I think we will be getting closer and closer to something similar to that, maybe where there's not a text file, but maybe you could import your text file and we would say, as a result of this text file, we recommend blocking these dependencies, blocking these license types, etc. But yeah, we have not discussed actually being able to have an import that we pull for people to be able to populate that allow, deny list and whatever. So
actually, that's something that came up in one of the analyst things, the Wave or MQ or somewhere, was customers want to have like a pre-approved bill of materials that they can draw from, and that kind of crosses into the line with the create, SCM group, I guess. But it'd be great if we could figure out a way to do that where the customer can decide this comes up a lot in regulated industries. These are the approved dependencies that we can use, and they shouldn't be able to pull anything else.
So yeah, possibly between create and our merge approval lists, and then maybe just being able to populate that from a text file import or a CSV file import, we could get close to there. So that's an interesting idea.
I bet we could also look at users and customers that have trusted Docker registries to look at what their workflows look like. Cindy, to your point about, you have trusted dependencies that you can only pull from here. They have that for container images, right? If we could do a similar workflow for code dependencies as containers, I bet we could probably get better adoption out of the gate.
Good idea.
Cool. And I'll probably let everybody go in a couple minutes just so we can all get ready for our next meetings. But yeah.
This is really good. I think
Burn out on brainstorming.
And I wouldn't necessarily characterize it as brainstorming. I think it's kind of strategic planning.
It's like
your requirements.
What has everybody heard about this? What other groups have you heard people doing about? What ideas do we have? Because I don't want to take action on it, which is why I don't want to call it a proposal review, because I'm not proposing anything. I'm like, we have some stuff we're working on. Is there stuff we could just tack a little bit here or talk to somebody here and take that thing where we've made one group happy and suddenly make two groups happy easier?
It might be interesting to do the same sort of discussion on some of the other capabilities, and maybe include an essay or two. Some of them that are, well, they're not essays anymore, like Adam Olson, or some of the folks in the field that are Brian Wall, that are more knowledgeable on security and very opinionated and have regular conversations with customers. And
I think I actually want to I don't want to limit people to a topic, but I have wanted to figure out a good way, and I don't know how to phrase this, to have the people in sales, because right now, like, occasionally people will bubble things up to me, but I sort of almost want to have like an office hours of like, I am going to be available, this week at this early hour and this week at this late hour and whatever. And if you want to drop in, I will just be chilling in my Zoom and you can come yell at me about things that you've had trouble with selling customers on or whatever, or that you've heard repeatedly, and just, we can spitball out stuff or whatever. If you have any ideas on better ways to do that, just because I would love to have them engage more, and I know they're busy and they don't seem to populate a lot up in issues. Occasionally we'll get quick slacks and whatever, but I would love to just be like, I'm here, you can complain at me all you want, I won't take it personal. I might feel a little bit bad.
I think that's a great idea. I would do one for secure and one for defend, and maybe at least quarterly, if not more often. I would definitely do that, and I'd love to participate with that.
So yeah,
I might put something together.
Yeah, let's like hit up Adam and a couple of the other people and just see, like, if we did this, would anybody attend, or is there another format that's preferred? Do they have an office hours that they would instead prefer us once every other month or whatever to show up to? Or
yeah,
just because sometimes it's a lot easier to be like, well, I constantly have problems selling X because we don't have SBoM, whatever. Yeah. And it's easier to just say that in a meeting because I'm there than for it to have gotten to an annoyance point where you actually create an issue. So there's like a different threshold. So I'd love to like lower the threshold where people could just things at me. So
I think that would be great. And we should preface it with pricing is not part of the discussion because otherwise it'll just be pricing.
it's like we do not currently have control over pricing.
Yeah.
It will not be productive for you to discuss that with us.
Right. Cool. Well, this is good. Thanks for
Thank you all for spitballing this. I definitely love some of the ideas, especially like hitting up the analysts or possibly, Sam, like you were saying, the percent complete. Like I think there's some good evil plots in here that could be quick wins when we're in other areas. So.
Nicole, do you want me to open an issue for you for an inquiry or?
If you know how to word it, because my wording would be like, what analyst has heard of SBoM requests from customers? So if you have a better way to phrase that, go for it. Otherwise, I'll just open one for Joyce with that, and she'll look at me funny.
That I think that's fine. I just spell it out, and but yeah, I think that'd be fine.
Right.
Okay,
Thanks,
cool.
everyone.
All right.
Well,
Thanks,
have a good
folks.
day.